Welcome to Blueshirt's Bandwidth. I'm your host, Joe Fortunato, joined as always by my co-host, Eric Cohn. Eric, how are you today?
Good, Joe. I feel like we're on the Delilah show. I don't know
My
if you
God,
ever...
that was the vibe I was going for. Not kidding
very good.
at all.
Yeah.
When I was a youngin' back in my high school, is she still around? I'm hoping.
Yes, she is.
My best friend growing up, kid by the name Paul, lived in the town that I moved from. So, we'd go see each other, whatever. And I remember driving and late at night, I would listen to Delilah, and Delilah was just this pleasant, very pleasant thing. And that was the tone I was going for. People would call in and she'd always be like, "Oh, this is Rick. He's been a veteran and his wife had 3 children while he was gone. And here are all the things." Or they adopted 47 children. It's just, it's.
And then the dedication that she would play, and for her, I would like you to play Back That Ass Up by Juvenile.
Correct.
It would always be something insane and inappropriate.
Can I play the thong song by Cisco for my wife who is away? Absolutely brilliant. Anyway, this is Bantering the Blue Shirts, Delilah edition.
No, it is not. It is Blueshirt Bandwidth.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It's Blueshirt's Bandwidth. I'm your host, Joe Fortunato, joined as always by my co-host, Eric Cohn. I still have snow on the ground. It's kind of weird. I was in the Dominican Republic last week. $85 a year, by the way. Get you all your ad-free access to the New York Rangers, blueshirtbanter.com. Just hit us and subscribe. $40 a year gets you access to our Discord, the community tier. You can ask questions on a very thread that Eric puts up every single week. We're going to start there. We don't usually do that, but we will. Cronus asks, what illicit activities was Joe doing in the Dominican Republic? Eric, I'd like to know what you think the answer to this question is, having known me.
Well, I have the disadvantage here sometimes, how you look ahead at the numbers players have worn for the episode numbers we're on, of actually knowing while you were there. My standard go-to joke has been that you're arranging some kind of a coup, but I don't know how hard it would be to pull off a coup on the government of the Dominican Republic. So I don't even have a good joke for it, just because I've been ruined by actual knowledge of why you were.
I was there for a wedding, for those of you that wanted to know. My sister-in-law's wedding, and I officiated it, and I did a brilliant job.
Wait, you officiated it?
I officiated the wedding. That's correct.
Are you
second
ordained
one in as many years?
Ordained in the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster? Or?
I was actually ordained. This is my wife's middle sister. I legally married her younger sister last year. Had to get ordained and everything. They had already gotten married legally in January. I guess Dominican Republic marriage licenses don't hold up well in the United States.
I can't imagine why.
It's not just them. It's all of the Caribbean. For whatever reason, they're just not as accepted, I guess. I don't know. So I didn't have
we'll
to
let
get
our
certified
doctors
for this.
go to med school there, but we're not going to accept marriage licenses. That seems reasonable.
No, that's what it is. So anyway, they got married. It was excellent. I had a wonderful time. I'd never been to the DR before. I'd probably go back. It was very nice. It was, stayed in all-inclusive and drink a lot and have some fun. I had the children with me. Probably wouldn't do that again if I could help it. But, it is what it is. But I was there. To Eric's point that he made before, 71st episode of Blueshirt's Bandwidth, not Bantering the Blue Shirts. These are the numbers that scare Chip. It's a number and then a 1. So he's not going to know who wore this number. I can think of 3 players who wore this number.
There are 4.
There's
so
4.
Let's hear the 3 that you think you've got.
Juuso Parssinen.
Juuso Parssinen is 1.
Mike Rupp.
Mike Rupp is 2.
And then Keith Kincaid, who I think the show should be named after. Or maybe Juuso Parssinen would be a good fit. Rupp has turned into a Devils guy all of a sudden, which I don't fully understand. I know he played for the Devils, but my lasting memory of Mike Rupp is scoring against the Flyers in the Winter Classic, and I think it was 2013, and doing the Yager glove-off salute.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I've always equated Rupp as a Ranger just in my head. Apparently he's a Devils guy now, so fuck it. It can't be the Mike Rupp show. It's got to be I know he was on the Devils for a while, but
5 years on the Devils. He didn't spend more than 2 seasons on any other team, and the most he had with any other team was 162 games with the Pittsburgh Penguins, 189 with the Devils, 68 with the Rangers. 4 goals in those 68 games that he had with the Rangers, and two of them, half of the goals he scored with the Rangers
In the
were
Winter
game-winning
Classic.
goals. Were game-winning goals.
Um,
And
anyway,
two,
so
yeah,
it,
and another one. Yeah, he had two in that one Winter Classic
yeah,
game. So
it's
yes,
not the
you
Mike Rupp
have
episode. It's got
you
to
have
be the
three.
Uso Parsonen episode because it's full of disappointment.
You are missing one.
Yeah, I can't think of who it would be.
2024, Tyler Pitlick.
Oh, Mr. Pitlick wore.
Yeah.
God, honestly, we're there. We're where it is right now. So, Chip would have gotten none of those, of course, because he doesn't
So
understand numbers.
is it
But
the
that's fine.
Parsonen episode or the Keith Kincaid episode?
No, it's the Parsonen episode because Kincaid was like a cool, fun story. He was, kind of a. There was no disappointment around Keith Kincaid. A lot of disappointment around these New York Rangers. We have a ton to talk about today, believe it or not. The Rangers have gifted us content as we enter the Olympics, and they've played no games. Probably why Eric and I are in a pretty good mood. For those of you that are watching, we're on video on Spotify. By the way, not doing a video with you and Chip because he's Chris Drury was a brilliant move. I have to say, like just absolute conviction of the bit. I'm wearing my Sacred Heart.
I really wanted to do video, and of course, the kind of culture that Chris Drury, because Chip is actually Chris Drury, breeds around that. It was far too intimidating. So
we'll get to not being allowed to talk to people. So
I was going to do the video, and then I just decided to quit instead. So that's I find that to be the reaction of people to Chris Drury that is most common. So I quit trying to do video, and we just did audio instead.
I'm wearing my Sacred Heart Mac Champions sweater from a couple of years ago. My boys beat Stony Brook in the season opener. Huge win for my Pios. So maybe we'll have John Basti come on again over the summer. He can talk about.
Yeah.
You know what? I take that back. He's got to get me another ring before we play this game. He gets me another ring, we'll have him back on the show. John, if I know, figure that out, okay?
Before we get into it, do you want to bask here in the glory of what Chip and I got wrong with the Ombudsman report? I'm going to jump right into that.
I was going to say I think we should go to the Ombudsman report, and let's no better place to start. Let's start there.
There we go.
I can only imagine a guy who doesn't know that Rick Nash wore 61 had a litany of things that Charlie could bring up. So let's hear it.
Here we go. The Podcast Ombudsman Report for Blueshirt Bandwidth, episode 70.
It would be hysterical if you were like, there were no errors in the episode.
There were no errors.
Like Charlie, I would have actually allowed that. I would have had a lot of respect for that move, but I know you didn't do that. So
it was not a clean sheet, alas. There are some things to point out here. We will start with most important podcast. Chip called us the most important podcast of the year. That's not true. That will be the Vincent Trocheck trade episode. Episode 70. This was the Mackenzie Skapski episode. He played 2 games in the NHL, winning both of his appearances in the New York Rangers net against the Buffalo Sabres during the 2014-15 season as the backup to Cam Talbot while Henrik Lundqvist was injured.
He had a shutout too in one of those games, didn't he?
Both games were part of a back-to-back and a period of 3 games in 4 nights. In his NHL debut on February 20th, Skapski surrendered just 1 goal on 25 shots to lead the Rangers to a 3-1 victory. 1 month later, Skapski shut out the Sabres 2-0. It was mentioned that Louis Domingue was eating spicy pork during, of course, Domingue was one of the other options we had for number 70. During Game 1 of the 2022 first round, Domingue ate spicy pork with broccoli during the 4th intermission between the first and second overtime periods. Domingue notably came on in relief of Casey DeSmith late in the second overtime and went on to get to the win when Evgeny Malkin scored in the 3rd overtime.
Have I ever publicly told the story about that episode on the show? Have I ever told you the story about that?
No, I don't think so.
So I'm at the game with my dad. We drove into the city for it, and I could not find a parking spot anywhere. So I found this small parking garage, and I was the very last car that they took. And the guy said to me, you have to get back here before everyone else does.
No.
If you don't, after the game, your car it's literally going to take us like 2 hours to get you your car because we can't fit it. We have to bury it in the back. So I was like, all right, whatever. For those of you that forgot about this game, at the very end of the third period, like with a minute and 30 seconds left, the Rangers scored to go up 4-3. The Penguins challenged this goal. I was unaware of this. When the Rangers scored, I never, ever, ever leave games early. My dad was like, you have to get
No.
out of here. Like, the Rangers are going to win this game. Get the fuck out of here. You have to go get your car. And I was like, you know what? You're right. So I leave. I go down the stairwell. Okay. My father is frantically calling me because obviously the Penguins are challenging it and that the goal might be reversed. I think it was an offside. I get no service. By the time I got to my father, I was already like to the phone. I was already outside of the garden.
No.
So I can't get back in. So I drive home. I am beyond, like, I'm sick to my stomach that this is happening. I listen to the first period in the car, listen to the second period in the car, get home and watch the third overtime. And then I watched them lose. And then I was so happy that I left because I didn't actually have to watch them lose in triple overtime. So it ended up working out. But for like 2 minutes, I was in the stairwell of Madison Square Garden thinking the Rangers won game one of that series, and they actually lost. So,
Are you the kind of superstitious person that thinks it was because you left early that they lost the game?
yes. And then I got COVID from the game, and then I missed game 5 and 6 at the Garden, so I was sufficiently punished. Or 5 and 7, I should say, excuse me. So,
To wrap
anyway,
up
didn't
this,
mean to interrupt you, but it was
no, that's
fitting.
fine. That was incredible. To wrap up this section of the report, finally, when introducing Chip, Eric said that, quote, "We'll see if you pitch a shutout off the bench." The remainder of this report will demonstrate that despite his solid performance off the bench, Chip did not pitch a shutout. Toronto Zamboni driver David Ayres was a building operations employee and Zamboni driver for the Toronto Marlies, the Toronto Maple Leafs AHL affiliate, who worked as the emergency backup goaltender and was pressed into duty on February 22nd, 2020. He stopped 8 of 10 shots that he faced to backstop the Carolina Hurricanes to a 6-3 win. Later that year, Upper Deck produced a Young Guns rookie card of Ayres in the 2019-2020 Update Series set. Charlie includes a picture of that. Another goalie whose rookie card was featured in that set was none other than young gun Igor Shesterkin. Bitcoin. Eric brought up the example of somebody buying a pizza for 10 Bitcoins back in 2011. It was actually 10,000 Bitcoins on May 22nd, 2010, and it was not affiliated with Papa John's. Instead, somebody on a Bitcoin forum offered 10,000 Bitcoins worth approximately $41 at the time for 2 large Papa John's pizzas. 4 days later, somebody took him up on the offer, and Bitcoin Pizza Day was born. Those 10,000 Bitcoins today would be worth approximately $700 million as of Sunday afternoon.
Okay, can we talk about this for a second?
Let me finish just the last note here on
That's
this
fine.
section, and then yes. For good measure, here is the clip of Nikki Glazer making fun of Tom Brady for losing $30 million in Bitcoin, and you should all go watch that if you've not seen it. Go ahead.
I like Nikki Glazer a lot, actually. I think she's very funny. I see people dunk on this guy all the time, and like, okay, but
How would you know? Yeah.
not only how would you know, he could have very easily just, it's not like he traded away some like rare, priceless artifact. He could have just gone and bought more Bitcoin. You know what
At
I
the time,
mean?
yes. Yes.
So
The whole
like, it's
point was
not,
to demonstrate that you could make a normal transaction like this using Bitcoin at a time where everybody was skeptical of the usability of it at all. So yes, of course, you would have no way of knowing that, I think at some point the valuation was over $1 billion for those
yeah,
10,000 Bitcoins if you had held on to them. And I think I had explained on the episode too that, the kind of nonprofit world that I have spent most of my career in, I was around a lot of people who very early on, around that time, were early adopters and advocates for cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. So people have often asked me if I have FOMO, for not having bought Bitcoin back then. And the answer is always, yes, of course I do, but I defend it with a couple of things. One, there are I assuage it a little bit with the knowledge that there are people who just lost the password to their wallet and have, $70 million worth of Bitcoin sitting in a wallet that they cannot access and will never be able to access again.
That guy has to be sick to his stomach.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a little bit with this story, but also the same kind of people that were telling me back then to buy Bitcoin were the same kind of people who were like, buy gold, buy silver, buy land in Belize. And it's like, I don't blame myself that much for not taking seriously. The same kind of people who have accurately predicted, 14 of the last 3 recessions. It's that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm with you, and I understand the point that you're making that
Yeah,
it was a transaction. It was a market transaction that you made at the time, and you can't really rue what the later valuation of something is when you would have no way of knowing at the time that it would eventually
yeah,
be worth that much.
if Bitcoin was there's only 5 million of them in the world, and
Right.
he gave 10,000 away. Yeah, I get that, but, like, the people dunking on him, it's like, "Oh, look at how fucking stupid." Do you know how many millions of transactions, if not, like, hundreds of millions there were of Bitcoin? I don't know, this has nothing to
Yeah.
do with anything. I just
So
don't
this is
understand why
this
people
this will
dunk
get
on this
in the
guy. I
next
don't think he did anything wrong.
This will get in the next ombudsman report, but I can't remember who it was, but there was an early investor in Apple who basically wanted their money in the very early days and got like $50,000. And back in like the late 70s, not it's a considerable chunk of change. If he had held on to the value of the company, the amount that he had, like he would be easily a billionaire today. And you can't regret those decisions in that kind of way. It's just not productive.
No, because there's another piece of the puzzle here, which is there's a million other things that you would have held on to, missed your opportunity, and got rugged. And then, like, I don't blame anyone for it is so easy. And actually, this is a really, really good transition into the Panarin conversation. It is so easy to look back after you know of everything that's happened and been like, oh, I would have done this differently. So, yeah, of course you would have. You know
Yeah.
how the
You know how
story
it turned out.
ends.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Panarin trade. I know you
We got a report to finish. Do you want me to
Oh, I
finish
thought
the
you were
report
done. I'm
or
sorry. I didn't
no?
realize
No, no,
you
no,
didn't
no.
finish.
Uh, Although we can put a pin in your segue because I like your segue. We'll come back to that. Number 24, Chip requested a moratorium on number 24 because it's been bad since Ryan Callahan left. The following players have worn 24 for the New York Rangers since Callahan's departure. And frankly, I forgot that Ryan Malone was ever a New York Ranger. They are Ryan Malone, Oscar Lindbergh, Boone Evis, Capo Caco, and Carson Soucy. Liam Greentree. There has been quite a bit of back and forth on how good of a prospect Liam Greentree is. Jay
Add to that
Fresh
today.
tweeted, yeah, we'll talk about this. Jay Fresh tweeted that Liam Greentree is, quote, not so much a prospect on the rise. I think that quote is, I'm no prospect expert, but the sense I'm getting is that Greentree is not so much a prospect on the rise. His prospect model likes Greentree a little more, with him having a 94% chance of becoming a full-time NHLer and a 36% chance of becoming a star. That immediately makes Greentree one of the Rangers' top 3 prospects and gives him a higher probability of being a star than Gabe Perreault or Scott Morrow,
According to the model.
according to the model. Panarin return. It was mentioned that Panarin would go to one of his preferred teams unless there was somebody willing to give him $12 million per year over 5 years. Although not reaching that amount, Panarin got a pretty close offer. Per Elliot Friedman's sources, the Seattle Kraken offered Panarin a deal worth at least $56 million guaranteed over 4 years, much greater than the one he eventually signed with the Los Angeles Kings. I guess that Panarin is really rich and just wants to live in New York City or Los Angeles. Keandre Miller. When discussing Keandre Miller, Eric said that, quote, the Hurricanes have a floor-raising system. That is true in that the Hurricanes have a very good defense, but Miller has also been great for them this season. And he includes the Micah McCurdy hockey visualization for the Carolina Hurricanes defense. You can check that out in there. Jeff Gorton draft picks. I thought this was interesting. Jeff Gorton's record in the draft was criticized. You can't expect a GM to know which player taken 10 picks later will become a star, but it's fair to compare the players he actually picked with the ones who were picked immediately after. Here's how that breaks down for Gorton. Which column of players would you rather have? So I will give these to you in first Rangers pick order and then the next pick.
Am I answering
order.
this question?
I'll give it to you in this way. All right. So I'm trying to think the best way to read this. I'm going to read it across. 17. They picked at 7. They took Lias Anderson. The next pick was Casey Middlestat. I'll give you a full readout of it at the end, and then you can tell me which column. I know which one you're going to answer. 17, 21st pick, Philip Hedl. Next pick was Kyler Yamamoto. 18, 9th pick, Vitaly Krasov. Next pick, Evan Bouchard. 18, 22nd pick, Keandre Miller. Next pick, Isaac Lundstrom. 2018, 28th pick, Nils Lundqvist. Next pick, Rasmus Sandin. 19, second pick, Capo Caco. Next pick, Kirby Dach. 2020, of course, Alexi Lafreniere. Next pick is Quinton Byfield. And 2020, 15th overall pick, Braden Schneider, followed by, I apologize in advance for this, Shakir Makhamadullin. I'm not certain how to pronounce his name, defenseman for the San Jose Sharks. So the Rangers picks were Anderson, Hedl, Kraftsov, Keandre, Nils Lundqvist, Kako, Lafreniere, and Schneider. The next group is Casey Middlestat, Kyler Yamamoto, Evan Bouchard, Isaac Lundstrom, Rasmus Sandin, Kirby Dach, Quinton Byfield, and Shakir Maka. I'm not going to try to say it again.
Yeah, I mean, again, to the point that I was making before, with the benefit of hindsight, it's easier to make that assertion today, right? Like, we look.
But I think Charlie's point here is that, like, we're not saying, oh, they could have taken this guy that went 15 picks later.
This is a harder
the guy
conversation
next.
Yeah, and like
the Claude Giroux thing, right? Where if you got into a panic pick situation, who you might have taken next. And in most of these cases, if they had panic picked the next guy, it looks like it would have worked out better for them.
Yes, and that again, it's completely defensible what they did with Lafreniere and Kako. Anyone else would have done that.
Of course.
So those
absolutely.
two are a complete wash. The real one there that it's like, oh, Bouchard is really the one where it's like, ooh, that probably would have worked.
Yeah.
And
yes, but
again,
Lias Anderson or Casey Middlestat, Philip Hedl. I'd rather have Philip Hedl in a vacuum.
So would I, for sure. I think
Kyler
Keandre Miller was a
Yamamoto.
great pick. I have no issues whatsoever with the Keandre Miller pick, with the Hedl pick. The bigger issue for me,
Rasmus Sandin over Nils Lundqvist. I think again, you're not going to repick the Capo Caco one, but like Kirby Dach over Capo Caco. Maybe
Byfield over Lafreniere. Like not.
Yeah.
The problem is the Rangers whiffed. 2 of those whiffs on the 4. Phil was the one that brought this up, I think, where Phil was like, look, a rebuilding team cannot miss
that many times
on 4 top 10 picks, which the Rangers did. 2 of those were completely self-inflicted wounds with Kraftsov and Anderson, which I was banging my chest from the jump that these were horrendous reaches that the Rangers simply should not have made. Lafreniere and Kako, totally different situation. Anyone would have picked them there. So I get where, like, I do think, and we're going to have a long conversation today about Chris Drury. I do think one of the things that Chris Drury is unfairly being judged on right now is the draft pick performance. Most of the shit that we're dealing with and the fallout of like why the Rangers are where they are from a draft perspective is because of the work that Jeff Gordon and John Davidson did. And that's just a fact. Othman didn't work out fine. That was also the first draft pick that Chris Drury made when he took over. There's also something to be said, if we're being fair, and we're going to talk about him too, that the Rangers probably would have drafted Charlie Stramel if he was available and the Wild didn't take him. And that would have been the wrong pick with Gabe Perreault on the board. So, listen, I think, again, you and I are going to have some words about Chris Drury, and they're not going to be good ones. But let's focus on the Panarin piece first. I know you and Chip talked about
two
you have more for Charlie.
Two final sections. I always tell you when the report is done, and you are just like champing
at the bit. I've been thinking about this for a week.
No, you're champing at the bit. That is the phrase, not chomping. So the side note here, which is going to mean something to some of you, but literally nothing to me. On that last exercise, Charlie says, side note, if you want to have fun and mess with a Philly fan, do this exercise for the process Philadelphia 76ers. I'm sure some of you know what that means. I have no idea.
I listen to Bill Simmons, so I have some form of an idea of what it means.
Last 2 sections here. Trouba. Somebody in the comments section praised Jacob Trouba by saying that, quote, Trouba concussed Sidney Crosby. Sidney Crosby was not concussed during the 2022 playoffs by Jacob Trouba, and the Penguins just pretended that he was concussed so the league would try to suspend Jacob Trouba. Although ESPN initially reported that Crosby missed Game 6 with a concussion, it turned out that he never had concussion symptoms and missed Game 6 for a upper body injury. Furthermore, per the official policy of Blueshirt Banter, we do not condone celebrating injuries, especially concussions, even if the player in question is Sidney Crosby. Finally, Binnington. Eric mentioned that Team Canada might start the worst goalie in hockey in the Olympics, but that Jordan Binnington played out of his mind in the Four Nations tournament. Here is the Ombudsman report. There's a link to it where Charlie pointed out that Binnington has been the worst goalie in hockey this year. Additionally, Jordan Binnington had a middle of the pack 907 save percentage in the Four Nations face-off last season. And that concludes the Ombudsman.
Are you releasing me from my duty here?
I'm turning you loose. Go whatever direction you want now.
Well, let's start with Panarin. Let's start with the Panarin trade. You and Chip gave your thoughts. Let me just give my thoughts. I think that there are, and we've talked about this before, there is a level of just disingenuousness. That's a word, right?
Mm-hmm. It is a word.
With the Chris Drury criticism that I don't love. The revisionist history on a lot of what happened with Panarin. Look, here's a week later, we know a few things, and other people are reporting this as well. Artemi Panarin's agent made it extraordinarily difficult, gave the Rangers absolutely no favors, worked out a deal with the LA Kings, told the Rangers they were only waiving for the LA Kings, and basically left Drury with no room to operate. Now, there are a lot of people who were screaming, if this was the return you were going to get, just hold on to Panarin until the end of the, trade deadline. You don't have to do this in this self-imposed deadline that you gave before the Olympics. But don't forget, there were rumors that things were so bad between the two sides that Panarin was sort of like hinting at the fact that they may just not waive their no trade clause at all. And you actually don't know what you're going to get by waiting. Panarin holds all the cards. If the New York Rangers got a phone call from Edmonton and they offered McDavid, Eichel, and 43 first-round picks, and Panarin says, I'm not going to Edmonton, the Rangers can't make the trade. It's the power of the no movement clause. Now, you can criticize Drury for the situation that the Rangers in, and you should, quite frankly. And if you have questions about whether or not he's the guy to get the Rangers out of this, which I think Eric and I do, again, that's fine. Is the trade underwhelming? Absolutely. For sure. On just with the context of like a guy of Artemi Panarin's ilk should not be traded for Liam Greentree and a third-round conditional draft pick. But given the fact that the Rangers were dealing with a player with a no movement clause who was in no interest of working with the Rangers, what else do you expect to happen? Something is better than nothing. Sure, the Rangers could have played hardball, gone to the Kings and said, you can either give us more or we're not trading him at all. That's apparently the only place Panarin was going to go. Panarin could have sat out the rest of the year and just waited for the free agency to open up. And I'm kind of surprised he didn't do that, considering he got a 2-year, $11 million. Like, none of this makes sense to me. Why did Panarin sign the extension? Because he wasn't traded with one if he wanted more money. Why was he willing? Look, I've seen a lot of people as well be like, oh, why the Rangers couldn't have offered him, 2 years, $11 million. I don't think Panarin would have signed that with the Rangers. And again, quite frankly, do you think the Rangers are going to be a competent hockey team in 2 years? If the answer is no, what is the point of not getting value for him? So, like, is the trade an A+ for Chris Drury? Absolutely not. There's no way it can be. Is it an F? No. It's like a C+, B-. He got value for a player that the Rangers weren't keeping. Vincent Trocheck, if that return is not a monster return, I will be right there with you with my pitchforks. I have made it very clear, and so has Eric, that we have drawn a couple of lines in the sand, and that is one of them. If Vincent Trocheck is not traded, or if the trade return is Charlie Stramel, a first-round pick and a B prospect, I will absolutely put my hand up, say I was wrong, and tell you that Chris Drury is unfit to do this rebuild. It's not going to change anything because he has, James Dolan's support, but I will be there with you guys to be like, okay, you were right. We were wrong. This guy is just not cut out for this. But that hasn't happened yet. I can't look at the Panarin situation with a critical lens when he completely controlled the situation. And one other thing, all of the people who are like, fuck Panarin, the Rangers should have played hardball with him. That's fine if that's your opinion. You also can't be a person who had the opinion that he was too mean to Barclay Goodrow and Jacob Trouba and that was a failing on the general manager. You got to be consistent. I think Eric and I were of the mind that, quite frankly, he was brutal with Gaudreau. He was brutal with Trouba. Probably should have been worse with Trouba, actually. But like sometimes that's what
Agreed.
you have to do to get business done. It just is what it is. I don't think it's a mistake for Chris Drury to look around the room and be like, huh, I should probably start playing nice with some of these guys, just from a reputation standpoint.
Well, and I made this point last week, I think, which is the 2 times that he has done that now, the Carson Soucy trade and the Artemi Panarin trade, were the most low leverage places where he could play as nice as possible and try to do
Right.
some of that fence mending because Carson Soucy was never going to bring back that big of return in the first place. So fine, maybe like what was it, a 4th round pick? I think they got for him. Maybe they get a slightly higher 4th round pick or a 3rd round pick if they send him to a different team. But he did him a solid by just sending him over to the Islanders. And with Panarin, it was obviously giving him exactly what he wanted on the timeline that he wanted for a guy who had a no movement clause and, as you noted, controlled the entire field of play there. And I think your point about it, because we are going to get into this, the growing and increasingly growing merit of Chris Drury criticisms. There are a number out there, and I am increasingly inclined towards the general thrust, maybe like at the macro level, if not in some of the micro cases, the individual micro cases. But I do want to make this point, which is it can't always be, not this thing, not that thing, but this secret third thing that Chris Drury should have done, but he didn't do, but he would have no way of knowing that he should have done, right? It can't just be that. I got so much bizarro pushback to me that you were highlighting of people who were saying, oh, why put the artificial deadline to trade him, before the Olympic break and not just hold him until the deadline? It was like my standard response to that was, and what do you think was going to change? I don't know that anything for certain was going to change. It was like, well, they might have gotten more of a return if LA thought that maybe they weren't going to get him at all. Okay, maybe. I still think the most likely outcome there is they get the same thing when you are, people know the term monopoly, right? When one seller controls the market, people are less familiar with the term monopsony. It's one buyer controls the market, and the Kings were the only buyer. So it is very possible that the Kings could have just said, fine, screw you. If you don't like this offer, it's going down if you wait until the trade deadline, not up. There's nothing to guarantee that they would have gotten more just by waiting. So that the
And can
answer
I
on
add
the
a piece
criticism
to that?
here, just cannot be whatever the untaken road, Chris Drury, whatever road he didn't take, that was obviously the right one to take.
And that's my
It
point.
cannot constantly be that criticism.
That is my point, is if Chris Drury would have waited and it would have screwed the deal in some way, shape, or form. If Chris Drury would have waited, then people would have been like, I can't believe the Rangers didn't trade Panarin. Like that, this is my problem. I need just normal criticism that stays in a lane. That's all.
Through line. Yeah.
Yes, I just need to see the logic of what the criticism is. To your point, look, I understand the argument from people that are like, hey, this was a self-imposed deadline. There was no reason for the Rangers to do this before the Olympics. I honestly do think that part of this was Panarin wanted to get himself set up in his new home
Sure.
before, during the Olympics. That's a nice thing to do. Look, I think the way that Panarin's agent handled this situation was pretty disgusting, to be honest with you. It certainly seems like he went out and solicited contracts and agreements from, teams that Panarin had no interest in signing with. I can't imagine that went over very well. Vince had done some reporting that like teams maybe don't want to work with the agent as much anymore. And he was Kaprizov's agent as well, kind of put the needle into, Bill Guerin. So look, is it if you were of the mind that Artemi Panarin was going to bring back a major, major return, as if he didn't have a no movement clause and you're disappointed, that's on you. Given the understanding of where the Rangers were with this situation, I think Chris Drury did okay. I don't think he did amazing. I don't think he did this brilliant job. I don't think it was an objective failure. Yes, it would have been nice to get a first round pick. They didn't. Okay, it is what it is. Like,
But
this is
instead
just
of the
kind of
first round pick, they got Liam
so
Greentree, who's the substitute for that.
that is the next piece of this. I have also
One
seen
more quick note just on the something you had said previously about the, why not re-sign Panarin if it was just 2 years at $11 million. And I think your point about the Rangers are not going to be good in all likelihood in the next 2 years. So what is the point there? There was this reporting that, and again, I would really caution people who are just absolutely, if you are pretextually starting from the conclusion that Chris Drury has screwed all of this up, and you are reading all kinds of things in the news, and when they confirm your previously held opinion, then you're absolutely eating them hook, line, and sinker. I would encourage a little caution there. As you noted about Panarin's agent, right? All that stuff that has also been reported. The story that, oh, the Rangers kind of made it clear from the beginning that they really didn't have that much interest in signing Panarin. I don't know, man. I kind of think that if they would have put that exact deal in front of Artemi Panarin back then, he would have balked at it. So
reportedly they may have.
yeah, I don't know what the deal was that was put in front of him. I don't know how those conversations went down. I do know that I am not taking just purely on faith what is being filtered through the press by Artemi Panarin's agent there. That is a very self-serving narrative that, oh, they made it clear that they didn't really want me. Like, I just, if it were actually true that at the end of the day he was going to be comfortable and he knew that at the beginning of the season with a 2-year $11 million per contract, then I think the Rangers would have signed him to that at the beginning of the season. But it's pretty clear to me he didn't want that, and he opted for, this is a place I would like to be. I just don't want to move all that much. There were different concerns here. So
Yeah,
I'm just kind of tired.
according to Vince and his reporting, the New York Rangers went to Panarin earlier in the year and basically gave him a couple of options. One of them was like the Kopitar deal, a 2-year, whatever I don't know what the AAV was. It doesn't sound like Vince did
13 or
either.
something. It's a high number, but short term.
I think it's 7. I think the Kopitar's on right now. I don't think it's 13.
I'll look this up. Go ahead.
For like a John Tavares deal, and then there was some other comp there. And Panarin took that as like a shot at him where the Rangers weren't particularly interested in keeping him. And that's sort of what started this. I just think it's apparent that the two sides didn't want to operate with each other. Like
Yeah,
it got
$7
to a
million.
it got to a point where like both sides were ready to move on. I don't think that's a mistake. I think it makes sense for both teams. They're just
Yeah,
not in
it's
the
fine.
same, right. These things happen all the time. It's okay to make a business decision. I don't think the Rangers made the wrong business decision by saying, hey, we're not going to keep Artemi Panarin. Let's try to get what we can from him. The guy is a no movement clause. Chris Drury got a return. It is what it is. Here's my problem. It, I've also seen, I really don't get some of you. Somebody in our thread, and I'm not going to, or our in the website, I'm not going to blow them up here, basically posted this like attack on Greentree from a prospect writer, and I'm putting that in, quotations. And it's like you went and found the one guy who had nothing but bad things to say about him and threw it out there. And like that's disingenuous too. Like what game are we playing here? It's just not. Look, let's say this about Greentree to the point that you made, Eric, and I think it's important to note because I think this is going to be a common theme with the New York Rangers. The New York Rangers, and Chris Drury said as much, went after somebody who was a little bit more NHL ready, who was on the older side, right? He just turned 20 in January, could potentially be an NHL player next year, rather than going for the mystery box draft pick. I've seen a lot of criticism of Greentree that people just don't like him. I don't know where this is coming from. Maybe it's just like pure negativity. I've spoken to some people, prospect people who I trust, who really like what Greentree could be. The guy scored a shitload of points last year. He is a born leader. For the C, when he was in his draft eligible year, which is a rarity. 43 points in 75 games. Granted, these are OHL stats. Like, I get it. You can read my report on Blueshirt Banter about it in the roundtable that we put up. But speaking to people that I trust, it's like if everything goes right, this could be a top line upside player. That's not nothing. Now, the drawback, and it's a major drawback, are two things. Greentree has all the skill in the world, an elite level shot, has that dog in him. Like Eric posted the video, and I think I sent it to you, where he must have been playing in a preseason game last year, but somebody tried to slash his stick on the Sharks, and Greentree smacked the stick out of his hand. Is like, I'm not fucking scared. If you like, the Rangers need that. Not a great skater, working on it. That's a red flag for sure. And really talented NHL body, like players with that skill set that don't skate well. The Rangers fuck those prospects up almost at 100% clip. So, like, that is a concern as well. But the people who are like, I'd rather have the first round pick than Greentree, why?
You just want different.
Like, you're not going to get a better opportunity to get this guy. Look, Hartford's a disaster. We've been talking about this for years. You're not going to get a better opportunity for this guy to come into the lineup probably this year. He's already signed his entry level contract, so you're not burning a year. Bring him in, let him play like 8 games with the Rangers this year, if it even works out like that, and /or play him next year. And I know it's not ideal to be developing guys at the NHL level, but like the Rangers are going to fucking suck. So if you can kind of keep some of the stink off and make them fun, and like they're just a young team like San Jose, certainly didn't hurt some of those kids' development to be hanging out in a not great situation because the vibes will be better. We're that negative. I get being negative. I am also nervous that the New York Rangers have traded for a player that they historically have not been able to nurture.
Yeah, you do have to, though, two things there. One, I would note that I would say the skating is a yellow flag more than a red flag. Like, the reports I've seen is that he is about an average skater, right? Like, and we agree the Rangers need to get faster, that they need players who skate better. Like, so much of the NHL, these players skate like the wind. Absolutely, I'm in favor of them getting faster when they can. And I think if there were two otherwise fairly equivalent prospects, Liam Greentree and somebody Liam Greentree like, who was a better skater, I want to think they would have gone for the guy who is the more plus skater in that situation. But there wasn't that guy, right? Like, again, this is one of those
He was the Kings' top prospect.
Yeah, you got boxed in again to a trade with the LA Kings, who had one of the worst prospect pools in all of the National Hockey League. So you got the best thing that they had, and that guy happens to be an average skater. And as you noted, he's working on it.
Not a bad prospect. Please go read
Yes.
Scott Wheeler's review
Yes.
on him from last year that I posted. Don't go surfing the internet for like these guys who are like, oh, this kid, he's like whatever was posted on the website in the comments section was like, oh, he doesn't have a good shot, or he's a terrible. People who are pretty reputable don't seem to think that. Like, I heard from someone who I think has been relatively negative about the New York Rangers that I would honestly, truly trust from all things prospects, who was like, this guy's not nothing. This is not like some bullshit B-level prospect. Like, this is a guy who has upside and value if everything goes right. The if everything goes right is a scary piece of it, but it doesn't mean that he's a bad prospect.
That's my other point. At some point, you do just have to start hoping, believing, whatever, that the Rangers are going to start getting it right with these players. Because if your, again, pretextual conclusion is that the Rangers shouldn't acquire a player like this, who has the potential to develop into the kind of NHL player that the Rangers need, because the Rangers' record for screwing up those kinds of prospects is just too high. I'm not disagreeing on the previous track record. I'm saying if you think that they're never going to get it right, well, then just say they should fold the franchise. Just say they should go out of business entirely. At some point, you do just have to start saying, enough bites at the apple here, they're eventually going to get it right. They're going to learn their lessons.
Maybe they've learned their don't. That's it.
Maybe
learning
they don't.
The lesson.
Maybe it takes more time. But if all you're going to say is that, like, the Rangers screw up every prospect they get, what's the point in getting any prospects? I don't know. Like, go root for a Premier League team or something. I don't know what to tell you. If you're just going to pre-conclude that it is never going to go right, No one's going to get better. None of these guys are ever going to turn into anything. What are we even doing here? Why are you cheering for this? What joy do you get out of this? What fun is this for you?
Well, some people have fun just by rooting against the Rangers, quite frankly.
I've fair and truly
the
obvious.
point of what you just said that's most important, it's not like a hope and a dream. It's have the Rangers learn their lesson. Has Chris Drury realized that this is an untenable situation that is only going to get worse, and they need to start actually prioritizing the development of some of these players? Let me add another thing, by the way, since we're on the criticism train. Not a great couple of weeks for Mike Sullivan. Sitting Scott Morrow is unfathomable to me. I kind of don't give a shit about the Brendan Othman thing, although I do think it's sort of wild to be like, he's not playing well, so we're just not playing him. Fine. We've been asking for accountability. I think Sullivan's actually done a really good job with accountability.
Othman is off the team at the end of this
year
anyway,
cool. Like
so what does
that,
it
I don't
matter?
give a shit. I'm having a really, really, really difficult time understanding why Scott Morrow is not only not playing in every game, is not power play quarterback one. I don't understand.
I get the power play part of it, but I'm saying I get your criticism about the power play part of it. They had just acquired, claimed Vincent Iorio. They play the same side. You and I have had this conversation before, and we don't need to revisit it. Coaches, especially on defense, do not like playing guys on their offside. So it's either you want to get Iorio into a game and you want to see what you've got there, the last game before the Olympic break, or you can get Morrow in. But you can't get both of them in unless you're going to pull somebody else from that side of the defense out.
So can I ask a question? It's probably going to piss you off because these topics bother you for whatever reason. If the fucking season is over, who cares? If the season is over, who cares?
Coaches don't like playing.
Stupid. It's stupid.
You can scream into the windmill all you want that it is
I wish
stupid.
I had a windmill.
It doesn't
I'd grind
change.
my gears or my grains, right? Wasn't that the original purpose of a windmill?
Well, it's tilting at windmills is the expression for, inveighing against things that have just no point in inveighing against. But like, there's different
disagree.
points. You can disagree, but like pretty much every NHL coach disagrees with you. It's not like there is this real burgeoning movement of, we're not even really thinking about positions and we don't really care about handedness. We're just throwing the best guys in, whatever. That coach really, unless they're coming up at a much lower level and are 15 years away from really hitting the NHL, I'm not aware of it. Coaches Mike Sullivan, Carberry, I'm not aware of any coach that does that. So it kind of back to the similar points that I think we've been making. I don't find the utility in inveighing against things that pretty much no one does. Coaches just don't do that. Their ultimate design for how they're going to want to eventually employ their defense on a team that they're trying to build structure, they're trying to build reps, they're trying to get these guys to learn the way that they want to play, that Mike Sullivan wants them to play. He's never going to deploy guys defensively, or extremely rarely, only when he's forced to, on their offhand. So why would he just do it? Because fuck all? That's not the way guys coach.
It's not fuck all. It's a player that you really need to figure out what you have.
Then pull one of the other guys out of the defensive lineup.
Yeah, who cares? You're not winning hockey games. It doesn't matter. It actually behooves you to be bad. I just don't. I understand your argument of these guys just don't think this way. My argument is I don't understand how Mike Sullivan is not looking at his lineup card thinking, okay, here are the 5 players I really need to give a shit about. These are the 5 players that I know are going to be here next year, or at least think are going to be here next year, that I have to make sure I am getting the most out of, and I am figuring out what they are. I don't understand how that's not absolutely priority number 1 for him. Urho Vakanainen has to play in hockey games? Why?
Okay, but again,
Will Borgen, who's supposedly injured? Why?
Okay, if Will Borgen is actually injured, okay, then I take your point with all of that. But you've got right-handed shot defenseman. Fox is injured. Will Borgen, Braden Schneider, Scott Morrow, Vincent Iorio. You can play 3 of them.
Cool. Sit Borgen. Who cares? You're losing hockey games anyway. So what have you gained? You're buying pizza with Bitcoin, and instead of holding it to just figure out what the value is. Except unlike that time when Bitcoin was like this unknown commodity, it's literally, if we're going to keep the analogy going, it's like me handing you 5 cryptocurrency coins and saying, hey, 2 of these might turn into something next year. And you're like, you know what? I'm throwing one of these out. Fuck this. I don't even want to gamble with that
Okay,
one.
so
Why?
wait. We're talking about one game, the last
We are
game.
talking about one game.
All right. Can we revisit this in like a month and a half if there is a repeat pattern after the break where Morrow is regularly sitting and they're not going through some kind of rotation, at least of Morrow and Iorio back and forth getting in with Schneider? And again, this may also change if Schneider gets traded. But
Well, probably
Schneider and
will trade if
Borgen,
Schneider's traded.
right. So that may be solved from another perspective. It's not that I don't hear you, and it's not that I don't in the abstract agree with the point you're making about like, let's get as much Scott Morrow as we can to see what we've got here with this player. It's one fucking game before the Olympic break. If it becomes a repeat pattern, and if nothing else changes to alleviate it, like Braden Schneider being traded or Will Borgen being traded, frankly, I will join you on the ramparts for this. But it just seems a little premature after one game, after they just acquired this new guy and are like, fuck it, let's throw him in and let's see what we got with this guy. It just seems a bit much.
Can I say something else to you that's going to really piss you off?
I love it.
It's because it's such a stupid one game small thing that it bothers me.
Yeah, that is stupid.
It is because it is not a big deal that it bothers me, because I can't understand what you've gained. I agree. If it becomes a pattern,
I don't know what you've lost,
take.
though.
You've shown me that you kind of don't think it's important to see as much of this player in a position to succeed as you would need to. It's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. I'm not complaining about Brendan Othman with this because I don't think Brendan Othman has a future with the New York Rangers. But I do think it's so small and stupid, it makes me angrier. Because it's like, why are you even doing this to yourself?
Again, for it to be 1,000 paper cuts, we would have to have more examples than one. So, like, you are complaining about the death of, like, one paper cut here.
I feel like we have plenty of paper cuts on this team.
Okay, so we're now counting all kinds of different things, or is this just a Scott Morrow thing?
I do think it all adds up for sure. Honestly, I do. I just think it all adds up. It's like little.
What are the other examples? If we're throwing Brennan Othman out,
yeah, we could totally throw.
What
Brennan
are the
Othman
other
out.
examples other than Scott Morrow?
I guess we could also throw out JT Miller playing while he's hurt, because he's obviously doing that to get to the Olympics.
Right, he's going to go on, like, as basically Vincent and other people have said, or no, it was Elliot Friedman. He's the guy he was talking about who's going on IR as soon as he gets back.
I think I said that too. I'll admit to this. I never do this, but I made Phil clip my comment on the show a couple of weeks ago that was like, I'm telling you JT Miller is going to play at the Olympics, and you're going to be like, oh, he can actually move his legs, and then he's going on the IR, and you're not going to see him until next year. But like, again, JT Miller playing while he's hurt. I know that's more of a JT Miller thing than anything else. Scott Morrow not playing on power play 1. The Rangers putting Connor Sheary on the fucking second line and him just playing 15 minutes a night. Little things like that add up over time. I don't think Brett Berard is anything. I don't know what Adam Sikora is. I don't know. We need to see some of these other players. I have to look at Taylor Radish's face. Matt Rempe is playing with a broken thumb. He's a shell of himself. I can't see some other kid. I'm not saying it's going to change the world. I just don't like the thought process, and I don't understand where some of this shit is coming from. I just don't get it. So yes, it's concerning. It's little stupid things that add up over time that this organization has done for eternity.
Look, it's not that I don't disagree with Well, yes, of course. Yes, yes. It's not that I don't agree with the last part of all of that. It is more of a two parts here. One, post I will feel differently about this, and maybe I will get as animated as you are about it. You talk about you're gonna say things that make me mad. Like you are definitely like the drill tweet person right now of do not put in the paper that I got mad as you're screaming about all the death by a thousand
No,
paper
but
cuts
I'm
stuff.
saying I'm mad.
I know. We'll put it in the paper that you got mad.
But I
Uh,
am mad. I'm not
I
saying
know.
I'm
I'm
not
telling
mad.
you,
I'm
we're
telling
gonna
you I'm
put it in the
mad.
newspaper that you got mad.
That's fine.
We'll quote you about it.
That's okay.
You're
I'm
you
mad.
were the one who was saying that I was gonna get angry about this, and you're the one who is like,
Oh, I just think
going to
you were gonna think that
burst a
my
blood
argument was
vessel.
stupid, and I was right. You thought my argument was dumb. I
I
knew it was gonna make you mad.
It doesn't make me mad. I just think it's stupid. I
Right,
think
well,
you are way out ahead of yourself on this. So what I was going to say is post trade deadline, if these kinds of patterns that you are totaling up from different points of this season, where from the beginning of the season, where there was actually the thought that maybe they were going to be a much more competitive team, through the whole thing falling apart, up until the point where they released the letter and declared this season to be something that they are punting on, and even next year or two and the year after that for that matter. um, Post trade deadline, if these kinds of patterns continue, then I will join you on the ramparts. I think you are just way out over your skis on this one, and I don't know that it is necessary to get this fit to be tied about Vincent Iorio coming in for one game over Scott Morrow right before the Olympic break. That again doesn't matter as the team is in absolute flux and tumult, and we're waiting for a lot of this stuff to settle out. Wait till you get to the other side of it and then have an. There's plenty of things for you to have an aneurysm about. Pick a
that's the
better
point.
one.
That's the point. The
No,
season
it's not.
doesn't matter. The season doesn't matter.
If you're outraged about everything, you're outraged about nothing.
Well, there's some things I'm not outraged about, but you know.
For the most part, like again, you're picking the smallest things to be the most outraged about. And I understand you're like, it's because they're small is why they're, the biggest. I think that's a weird argument, but okay, fine. If that's the
I'm
way
not
you
saying
want
it's
to
because it's the
live,
biggest. I just think it makes it sillier that it's so
right.
small.
Wait till they clean house. Like again, on the other side of the trade deadline, if it's still this shit show, I will join you in these complaints about all of this stuff. I don't know why it's worth getting yourself this exercised about it. It doesn't fucking matter.
Well, in general, like anybody who's getting angry about wins and losses at this stage in the game, I just don't know what to tell you. I think you have
It's
to
not a
accept
wins and
what this
losses
team
point.
is.
I'm
No,
not wi- I'm make,
we're
I'm not
far
making a
beyond
wins and
this.
losses point.
No, I agree. But I guess the point that well, there's no point in us running in circles. We're never going to agree on this. I want to say one other thing that I forgot to talk about that we had talked about offline, and maybe I should let you do this because you were the one that wanted to talk about it as well. Uh, do you understand how stupid something has to be to get me to agree with Ken Campbell on anything? And I fucking
Yeah,
agree with
no kidding.
Ken Campbell. He reached out to try to have a conversation with Liam Greentree after the trade. And apparently, New York Rangers PR and the New York Rangers forbade Greentree from talking either in this interview or about the Panarin trade in general, which was the crux of the interview. Scott Wheeler made a comment that the New York Rangers are the only organization to have this type of restriction on their prospects of all the teams. He talked to me about it a little bit with Alexi Lafreniere, I think on the show, about how like he was kind of sheltered from a lot of this and, he didn't learn some things through it. My response to Scott Wheeler's tweet was, well, yeah, but the Rangers are really good at developing prospects. So like, obviously something's working. And it's like, oh, wait. And this is not a Drury thing. The Rangers have been like this forever. Even with a new PR regime in place, it's been like this forever. It's so fucking stupid. Why can't he talk? What is Liam Greentree going to say that you don't want him to say? Does he have an intimate knowledge of the trade conversations going on with the Rangers and Artemi Panarin? I fucking doubt it. What are you protecting us from or him from? What do you think he's going to turn around and be like, I don't want to be a New York Ranger? Maybe he feels that way, but if he did, he wouldn't give a shit about saying it. Like, I just don't understand.
Well, Joe, isn't it bad enough that he has been traded to the New York Rangers, just the absolute dumpster fire of a franchise that they are. And then to add insult to injury, he was going to have to talk to Ken Campbell. I mean, how much worse could it get for a guy?
Well, Ken Campbell was not the 200 hockey men guy, right?
I don't think the thing that I really remember Ken Campbell for was in 2014 for writing the obituary of the New York Rangers when they went down 3-1 against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Of course, with the Rangers rallying from that 3-1 series deficit to go on to the Stanley Cup final. And I feel like he has been salty towards the Rangers because of that ever since. But he is just one of the most sanctimonious, self-important, currently independent, because the Hockey News was like, get the fuck out of here, hockey writers out there. So I agree with you. It brings me no joy to say that I agree with Ken Campbell. It is absolutely stupid that he was not able to talk to Liam Greentree.
Yeah, I don't understand. I just don't understand. What are you worried he's going to say? Like, he's going to get on and be like, well, sure sounds like the Kings fucking fleeced Chris Drury on this trade. He's going to give the hockey answer that every player in existence gives. Really excited to be with the New York Rangers. You know, it's a great opportunity for me. What is he going to say? What are you worried about him saying? For the light, like, this is the type of stupid little shit, not to go back to my other point, where, like, what does this actually hurt? You can totally make the argument. You could do the whole Eric Calm, I'm above this argument that you just did before about the Scott Morrow thing, where it's like, what does it matter? Seriously, like, who fucking cares? Who cares that the Rangers don't let their prospects talk to guys? It's just stupid.
It is, and it's markedly different as a overarching policy as opposed to a single fucking game defensive lineup decision.
That has not been a single game. I'm not getting into this again, but it has not been a single game.
The one you were pointing to was a single game decision, as you admitted, but we're not getting into this again.
The jury will ignore what Eric just said. Strike it from the record. I just don't.
You're damn right I ordered the code red.
I don't understand. The Rangers are not this, like, brilliantly well-run organization. And it's very, very clear that Eric and I might be eating a fucking shitload of humble pie about Chris Drury, which is probably a really good transition to get into our thoughts about Chris Drury. It's just continuous, like, stepping on rakes and them flying into our faces. It's just what the Rangers are right now. And while I am not critical about Chris Drury with the Panarin situation because there was just no controlling the outcome, it was completely in Panarin's court. Vincent Trocheck is going to be something that you can be super critical of. Not sure if you guys saw, it's going to be the topic of my column for the Joe's Reaction of the Week. Vincent Trocheck thought it would be super funny to pretend to join the Minnesota Wild in their team photo because of the rampant rumors that he is going to be traded to Minnesota. I don't think it's fucking funny. I don't think it's funny that Vincent Trocheck has been a quote-unquote leader on this team for the past 2 years that have been some of the most disgraceful teams I've ever had the privilege to root for. I don't think it's cute that Miller and Trocheck basically get to shit their pants on a nightly basis and go play for gold with Team USA. And I certainly don't think it's cute that Trocheck thinks it's funny for him to pretend that he's already on the Minnesota Wild. If that is the type of leadership that he is exhibiting, and maybe this is me being old man yells at clouds, it is
No, I don't
no
think so.
wonder the Rangers locker room is as fucked as it is. I'm sorry. I have zero tolerance for this level of bullshit. It's not funny. It's not a game. The Rangers are an atrocity. You are part of the reason the Rangers are an atrocity. And you actually get a get out of jail free card by March. You get to get traded and get rewarded for the nonsense that you've pulled here in New York for the past 2 years to play for a Stanley Cup after you were given the ability, because the general manager that's probably going to trade for you is not intelligent, to be put on the USA Olympic team. I'd probably sit this one out if I was Vincent Trocheck. And I'm sure he's not thinking of it in this meta like, oh, I'm taking a shot at the New York Rangers. I'm sure he was like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if I did this? And like, if I wasn't a Rangers fan, I'd be like, oh, that's pretty funny. But I am a Rangers fan. It bothers me. It bothers me that these guys don't give a shit. I shouldn't give more of a shit about the Rangers being a disgrace than they do. And JT Miller going on the IR is going to piss me off too once the Olympics are over. Eric, I'd like to start there. Would you like to add anything?
I agree with you about Trocheck. I feel that so much of the debate, and I'm going to zoom out on the Chris Drury part of it in a moment because I think that's also where we were dovetailing to with this. So much of this debate to me has been, and look, if you're listening to this show, you've been listening to us now for potentially 71 episodes of us talking about all of this stuff. And again, I'm going to get to the macro Chris Drury part of it in a moment here. But we have had criticisms of Drury before. We have had criticisms of the players before. And I feel so much of the conversation is geared towards trying to find the piece of exculpatory evidence for the players because you would rather lay all of the blame at the feet of Chris Drury. And in a certain sense, you have a point there. I don't think it's as powerful a point as you think it is because in the case of like what you're talking about here with Trocheck and his leadership, it takes two to tango. And the players, of course, even if I cede all of your arguments about Chris Drury, that he is stubborn and a pain in the ass and just an asshole and awful to deal with and nobody likes him and he's distant and he's not engaged with the players still choose the way that they choose to engage back with that situation. And I think they have also chosen poorly. If Drury has chosen poorly in his tactics, the players have also chosen poorly in how that they have opted to deal with this. This case with what Trocheck is doing is a perfect example of that. That is not a leadership move. Doing the funny thing, doing it for the lulz is not a leadership move. And this is a guy who supposedly, remember when we were having conversations about Vincent Trocheck as the next captain of the New York Rangers? That's captain behavior. Now, again, I got questions about JT Miller. You have heard them over the last couple episodes of this show, but that's not leadership behavior from Vincent Trocheck. And he chooses how he handles this. Drury does too. So did Jacob Trouba. So did Chris Kreider. So did all the players last year. So have all the players this year. I am more content at this point to just be a pox on all of their houses. I don't know how much it is worth trying to break out a scale and trying to measure exactly how much blame to put where. It's bad. And this to me gets back to the bigger point about Drury, which is not all of those moves. We have certainly had criticism of individual player moves, trades, signings. Nothing good about the Patrick Nemeth signing. In many cases, what has been somewhat exculpatory for Drury there has been, you are going to make mistakes. In any line of work, whatever your job is, whatever you do, whatever you're doing in life, you're going to make mistakes. And part of it is how you respond to those mistakes, how you get yourself out of those situations. And while, of course, we wish he wouldn't have signed Barclay Goodrow, getting rid of him in certainly a cost to the locker room that I still don't know if it was absolutely necessary for the locker room to take it in such manner, but being able to get out of that, getting out of the Trouba contract in the way he did after all the mess of all of that. Getting rid of Patrick Nemeth after that didn't pan out. I think those things matter, but they're not everything. And the way that I put it in the banter Slack was, and I apologize for the kind of hackneyed analogy here, but I can look at each individual tree and I can tell you that, like, it's an all right tree. It's a fine tree. I like this tree. It's got some leaves over here. I like the way the branches move in this direction. I wish there was a little more on this side. This side looks fine. I have a look at each of those individual trees and find something fine about it. And then you zoom out, and the forest is just kind of a pathetic collection of saplings and trees that are kind of dead on one side. It's like if I turn and I look at the tree from this perspective, it's like it looks fulsome and beautiful, and you miss the part of it that's dead. The forest is less impressive than the individual trees. It is what has happened here under Drury's watch is less than the sum of, I think, even the individual parts in that sense. It's not good. And I think there are culture problems there. And the point that people would make that, like, ultimately the buck is supposed to stop at the top. And it is. The top is not Chris Drury. The top is James Dolan. And this gets back to the same conversation that we have had before. Maybe you're wishing for Brendan Shanahan. Maybe you think Brendan Shanahan would do a better job. I am more open to that argument now than I have been in weeks, months, maybe. I am more willing to entertain that. I think those are the two choices that you're making. But it does not seem to be that Chris Drury is going anywhere in the immediate future. So in a way, you kind of got to hope that he is able to pull the rabbit out of his hat here. And in the same way that I don't have a lot of patience for the kind of doing it for the lulz that Vincent Trocheck was engaging in at the Olympics, I don't have a lot of patience for people who are being Leninist about this because they have come to the conclusion that they hate Chris Drury and they want him gone more than they want to see the Rangers succeed in the near future. You may get your wish that Chris Drury is gone sooner rather than later, but the only way that's going to happen is more catastrophe. And if you're cheering for more catastrophe, if you're welcoming of more catastrophe because you would rather be proven right than the Rangers be good, so be it. I can't talk you out of that. I just want you to know that I don't really have any more patience for that than I have for Vincent Trocheck's antics, and I have no patience for that.
I just I also think it's wild that he did it. Like, Drury's there. He's the assistant general manager of the team. I look, the culture is fucked. And Chris Drury is a major part of that culture being a problem. Now,
Agreed.
it certainly feels like Drury is trying to be a little bit softer just in the way that he's handling the players. Obviously, they've taken some knocks publicly about this. I think it's certainly impacted them a little bit. Not that there's any major free agents that are going to be out here anyway. The Rangers are in a really bad spot right now. Chris Drury basically needs to hit a grand slam with Trocheck and then at least a home run with Schneider to even start thinking about getting out of this hole they've dug themselves into. And a lot of that, again, is Chris Drury. Chris Drury has caused a lot of these problems. Eric and I have mentioned this a couple of times. Let me not bury the lead. If your question today is, do you think Chris Drury is capable of properly executing this rebuild? My answer right now is, I don't think so. That's the level of concern that I have right now. I am withholding judgment until Vincent Trocheck is traded, because that is ultimately going to be like, again, if it's Charlie Stramel, a first-round pick and like some C-level prospect, I'm out. I'm out on this. This is not
Can I
okay.
pause you for a second there?
Again.
I am, as I noted in the Liam Greentree roundtable, I am not a prospect guy. What I know about Stramel is he plays in Michigan State, which is 45 minutes away from where I am here in Grand Rapids, and is my wife's alma mater. So there you go. And I know he scored the overtime goal in the outdoor game at Penn State, and I'm always happy to see Penn State lose whenever the sport is. So, what is the problem with Stramel as a prospect in return for Vincent Trocheck here? Is it just that he's fine, but that whole package you're describing is not
Yeah,
enough?
it's
Or is
here's
there
what
an
I'll tell
issue with
you.
Stramel ipso facto?
No, there's nothing specifically about Stramel himself. So I'll read a quote, which is actually going to be kind of fucked up for me to do because this person doesn't know I'm doing it. So I'm not
Attribute
going to
it.
say who it is, but it's somebody I trust when it comes to prospects. And the quote is, I think there's been an overcorrection. He's not going to be Tom Wilson like a bunch of scouts hoped for when he was drafted. People were right to push back when people were ranking him in the almost top 10 and when he looked like the New York Rangers pick at 23. But now people are acting like he sucks. He's probably going to be an imposing third liner, maybe at center. They would need a first with Charlie Stramel for this deal to make sense. So, look, if this is the best deal that's on the table, okay. I just don't know how mystery box Vincent Trocheck, like maybe he's a little bit better than Vincent Trocheck and a first round pick is look, there are things on Minnesota that I love, like really love. And I don't necessarily know if Chris Drury is going to be able to pry these guys away. Yurov, I think it is. Let me make
Yeah,
sure that
you're
name
off.
is right.
Yeah. Chip has
Yurov
brought that
is
up.
supposedly a player that Minnesota was not willing to move for Quinn Hughes. Now, does Bill Guerin think to himself, I have a shot at the Stanley Cup here. I need to shore up. I'm willing to, part ways with him. Fine. But the thing about Stramel that's freaking me out a little bit actually has nothing to do with Stramel, which is unfair to him. It's that I know Drury really coveted him in his draft year. So is this just Chris Drury going back to the well for a guy that he really liked rather than taking the best deal? On Blue Shirts Breakaway, they had Vince on. He mentioned 3 teams: Minnesota with a bullet, Detroit, and Carolina interested in Trocheck. I have much higher respect. Respect's the wrong word. I have much higher love for the prospect pool in the 2 teams that are not Minnesota there. And like, why are we if you're going to give him, if Minnesota wants him that bad, squeeze the shit out of Bill Guerin for him. This situation cannot be screwed up. And maybe it's unrealistic of me to just say that Stramel in a first is not enough. Maybe that's the very best Drury could get for Trocheck. I don't think that's true. The Rangers are really the only seller in a seller's market who have the premier piece. You got to get more than that. You have to. You just have to. And if you're not trading with your buddy, who's probably going to get the shit kicked out of him in the U.S. in the Olympics this year, because I don't have particularly high hopes for the Olympic team, then so be it. But the return for Panarin was not enough for the Rangers to not hammer the Trocheck piece out of the park. That's just my takeaway. Fair or not, that's my
Yeah.
takeaway.
No, I think that's fair. I think it is fair.
We've given you over an hour and 17 minutes, actually. Let's burn through a couple of questions and get the fuck out of here. Ship 23, who doesn't know how to count. Other than hockey,
Fuck
what
that guy.
competition in the Winter Olympics has your attention? I'll tell you one of them. It's the long jump. Not because of the long jump. How does injecting something into your dick make you fly faster on skis? Can someone explain this to me? Why would it have to be injected into the penis?
I I don't understand, and I want to be clear, I don't want to understand. I don't want to.
Why?
I don't want to know.
What? The penis isn't even, it's not even aerodynamic.
Well, that's not what your mother said last night.
Well, good for you then. You have an aerodynamic penis. I think that means it's really small because there's no wind friction. That's my answer. Mike NJ New York Rangers said, I like curling. I've curled
Can
before.
I
I like curling.
Yeah, I like curling and I like speed skating involving whoever that lovely Dutch woman is.
But yeah, there's some pretty good Instagram videos of her right now. So she knows it.
Yeah, but
She knows.
curling is Curling is pretty great. The Winter Olympics are better than the Summer
Curling
Olympics.
is so boring to watch on TV, though. I got to be honest with you. I
Yeah,
just can't.
I like golf, so, like, you're barking up the wrong tree here with the "it's too boring to watch on TV." I'm a baseball and golf guy, like, it's just because the pace of it is not, relentless doesn't mean that I find it boring.
Yeah, the skiing. I think there's there's a few things out there
Winter
that
Olympics is just better than the Summer Olympics. It just is.
that is Eric Cohn saying the Winter Olympics like better than swimming and gymnastics. I don't know if I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, overall, yeah, I'd rather watch the Winter
So
Olympics than the summer.
Um, Igorovich, there's a chance the Rangers end up with 3, maybe 4 first-round picks this year, including a likely top 3 pick. Given that, is there a world where the Rangers make all of those picks and then use the next 4 first-round picks to sign RFA Jason Robertson to a massive deal? If so, is that a good idea? I would tell you, and I think I can speak for both me and Eric at the same time, um, anytime you can get a superstar, you have to do it. So if you can sign Jason Robertson to a contract, an RFA, offer sheet is the word I was looking for, and he takes it and you get him that way, do it. You have to do it, even if it's 4 first-round picks. Probably none of them are going to turn into Jason Robertson, especially if you land a top 3 pick in this year's draft, which is an incredibly strong position to be in. So that would be my answer. Eric, do you disagree with any of that?
Potentially, I well, the question I was gonna ask you is, how many seasons do you think before the Rangers are competitive again?
Great question. I take back my comments about you being a contrarian. You now remember this isn't a trade, so you can't put protections on the picks that you're giving up for a restricted free agent if you're
Yeah,
acquiring them that way.
I know all of this is stipulated. My question is just it is
But that was for the
it's
audience, not for you.
oh, sure. It's less a question of, like, the methodology of acquiring Robertson than it is about a timeline question about acquiring Robertson.
I think I I think if you can get Robertson in here and you get a bona fide superstar that's that young, you can actually accelerate the timeline a little bit, and then you're not dumping, Greentree and Perot and these other guys into a pile of shit, basically. And
Okay.
it does sort of give you an opportunity to go out and be a little bit more attractive to other free agents. I just don't see how you don't do it if you have the opportunity to.
The
Now,
question was, how many seasons before you think and assume whatever you think you need to
with
assume in
Robertson, I
there.
would still say 2 or 3 at best.
So let's say 3. So next year is his age 27 season. That's 1. His age 28 season, his age 29 season. So your optimistic scenario is when he's 29, verging on 30, is when you think the Rangers might be competing again.
Yeah,
So
that's a fair point.
you're going to have a couple of years there before, like, again, you have no idea what the declines are going to look like. And, we go back to when Mika Zibanejad was signed. Like, again, not saying that, like, he was regarded at the time the same way that we regard Jason Robertson right now, but, like, you just don't know how some of these things are going to pan out. I just, maybe I am a little more hesitant to say that I think it's going to work out that quickly. And then I'm wondering if, like, we're talking about by the time they're really competitive, we're talking 31, 32-year-old Jason Robertson, and you will have given up. Now, again, I think a trade in many ways is going to cost you less than the 4 consecutive first round picks that you would for to sign him as an RFA.
Plus, you could put protections on them.
Yeah, exactly. So I am not all that enticed by the idea of signing him to a whopping offer sheet that costs me that much, but
That's fair.
I
You've
would be
swayed me.
interested in trading for him.
Now, let me ask a different question. Let's say you land the first overall pick this year and you get Gavin McKenna. Are you more or less inclined to take an enormous swing on Robertson, knowing that you have that piece coming in?
I would think about it, but I'm still pretty hesitant. I mean, look, this goes back to the fundamental conversation that we have been having about elite talent in the National Hockey League, and I understand the point here that you're bringing in that elite talent in acquiring Jason Robertson, but the point we keep returning to, the reality we keep returning to, is the only way to guarantee having top level talent coming into your team is to draft and development. And going even in that case with Gavin McKenna and with Robertson and Greentree and Perot. Like again, I'm liking the sound of this a lot more. 4 years without a first overall pick scares me. It
Scares me
just
too. Now,
scares me.
the other thing that floats around in my head is if I trade Vincent Trocheck and then I trade Braden Schneider and I get 2 more future first round picks. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
starting
thinking
to
a
do the
little
math.
harder about it.
I'm doing the math a little bit more there. Your the 2 biggest concerns I would have is what you just brought up, which is like, are you actually even going to be competitive while this guy's in his prime? And the other thing that I was a little bit more concerned about was like, what if the Rangers really fucking suck again next year, which they very much so might? Are you giving away another lottery pick that you'd be able to make to do this the hard way? Because
Possible.
quite frankly, I don't think Chris Drury has the patience to do it the hard way. I think that's part of the reason this rebuild's not going to go that great. Like at some point, you need to learn your lesson and realize that you've tried now on numerous occasions to speed this up and it has not worked for you. So stop trying to speed up the process.
It worked. To make the point, it worked in the sense of like we got 2 conference final trips in 3 seasons. And yes,
Yep.
those teams they did not get to the final, they did not win a championship. But I think it's more of like a artificial sugar high. They sped it up and they boosted that small sample size there, that small window, and then the bottom fell out. So I think you're kind of kicking it a little down the road in that the bottom may fall out of it sooner than later, and you find yourself back in the same position. So if some of those things fall into line that you've described, I'm entertaining the offer sheet thing a little bit more. I'm still probably like 51% on the side of no.
Okay. State of hockey. It's a long question, but I think I can answer it pretty quickly. Given that Chris Drury consistently trades away assets when they are at their lowest value, what is the logic behind holding on to Igor and Fox? There's more to the question, but the answer right there is no movement clauses. They want to be here. That's the end of the conversation. So,
If let me ask you this question.
sure.
If you could go to them and say, "We'll move you. We'll move you to competitors, obviously you control ultimately what you say yes to. Are you open to being moved?" And they both say yes. Would you want to move them?
Me or where the Rangers are currently thinking right now?
Well, I mean, I think that's the same question, right? So
It's
like I'm
not.
asking you to be in that position to
If
make
you're
that call.
saying I'm Chris Drury, me as in me, not what we like. I think Chris Drury says no because he's doing a retool and not a
Yeah, I'm not
rebuild.
asking you what you think Chris Drury would do, but I'm
Okay,
asking
right.
what would
That's what
you
that's
do,
my
Joe
question. I
Fortunato. Yeah.
I would probably if they both said to me like yes, we'd be willing to move, I would absolutely dangle it. Not because I think Igor Shesterkin isn't worth the money, not because I think Adam Fox is not elite. I think Eric and I have made our points on both of those things very clear. It's just that the Rangers are so bad, you are probably better served to tear it down to the studs. Now, if the only thing I get back for them is a Panarin-esque return, where Adam Fox is like, I'm only going to X team and I'm negotiate with them and I'm getting like a prospect and a second or a conditional second round pick, I'm not trading him. Like, I would need to be blown away. But if they said to me, yes, I want to be out of here, I would think about it. More than think about it. I would actually shop them actively. I think the Rangers situation right now is that bad. What about you? What would you do?
Yeah, I with the same conditions, I think yes. If you are if you're putting it out there, not in the sense of, Panarin was a contract was coming to an end. Obviously, these guys have many years left on there, several years at least in Fox's case, and plenty in Igor's. You're getting a guy signed to these deals, guys who are elite at their position. So I think you'd be in a position to demand a bigger return than you would get for Panarin. I think you have to say if they were open to it. I mean, this is way too late in the podcast to get into this conversation. We can punt it to next week because we're not going to have a hell of a lot to talk about other than some Olympic hockey,
Maybe Vincent
probably.
Trocheck could do something else fucking stupid.
Yeah, maybe he can do something else that's just an absolute travesty to the idea of leadership. But uh, is this a retool or is this a rebuild? And what is the difference? And is the retool as public PR? Is it public? Is it internal PR? Is it one or the other? Is it both? I don't know. It all kind of depends on what the philosophy is there. If you really seriously think in 3 seasons, you can be, so not next year, not the following year, but the year after that, you can be a playoff team again, then you hold on to them. If you think it's going to be 4 or 5 seasons, yeah, I think you have to consider trading them for the returns that you would get back for guys that are under contract for that long and at frankly pretty good deals. I know people hate the Igor contract. I think they're wrong. We've had that conversation before. I think plenty of teams would be happy to have that player at that contract. I think you have to if the return would be that good.
I agree. You're saying born after 1994. If I'm not mistaken, we have 2 first-round picks this year. Do you think Chris Drury will try to trade for a struggling young star or some sort of NHL-ready player using one of these picks to speed up the retool, or do you think he makes both selections?
This is the
Again,
Robertson conversation.
yeah, well, yeah, half and half. I think if you could, again, well, yeah, we kind of touched on that a little bit. Removing Robertson from the equation, I would tell you I think it would seriously behoove the New York Rangers to make as many draft picks as they possibly can. I
Agreed.
think it has been far too long of this team kicking the prospect shit down the road, and it burns them every single time. Every great team that is a consistent Stanley Cup contender drafts really well. And maybe they don't even draft really well. They just draft enough that they get wins in there. And the Rangers historically don't do that. If I were running the rebuild and I was Chris Drury, yeah, if I could get a guy like Yurov or like in the situation with Panarin, you're only getting Greentree, totally fine. Like happy with that. I don't have a major issue with that. I don't mind getting draft picks back and, younger upside prospects. I think Chris Drury is going to focus on trying to get guys that are a little bit more NHL ready. It's going to impact the return because you're getting a theoretically better, like more polished prospect out of it. I bet if the Rangers went to LA and they were like, okay, we don't need Greentree, but we'll take your 4th best prospect, which is basically a nothing guy. They would have gotten a first round pick. I'd rather have Greentree, I think, in that situation. The Rangers already have 2 first-round draft picks this year. I don't think LA's pick is going to be all that much better than the Dallas or Carolina one that the Rangers are going to get. So, like, I'd rather just make the really good pick with what we have, which is going to be a lottery pick, and then get whatever you get at the end of the first round or whatever it is. And then you have Greentree that can kind of step in next year. I think that's fine. You don't need 3 or 4 first-round draft picks this year. It's cool to, like, spread them out a little bit. I think Chris Drury is going to forego a lot of that. I don't know. It's just my sense. Rangers fan born after 1994. I would tell you that if it were me, I'm making both of those picks. If Chris Drury thinks he can get Jason Robertson, he's trading for Jason Robertson. And, I don't know. That's just kind of where my head's at. Eric, I'm giving you a chance to disagree. You're not saying anything.
I'm good with that.
You good with that? Okay. Statesboro Blueshirt CT. If Chris Drury were kidnapped, would anyone pay the ransom? I'm sure people would.
I had to look up his wife is Rory Drury. I'm sure she would pay it.
Rory Drury?
Rory, Rory.
Yeah, Rory Drury. Interesting. I didn't even know he had a wife. I didn't assume he didn't have one. I just was not something I knew. I mean, listen, again, you guys can say whatever you want about the shithole, organization with the Rangers and Chris Drury and everything that he did wrong. I will say the man knows how to run a pizza restaurant. Colony Grill is legit. So something to think about. That's it. Anything else, Eric? Anything you'd like to lay out for the people? I gotta say, getting an hour and 30 minutes out of this was pretty impressive by the two of us. Once again, a magical. I had a mentor who said, "Never grade your own report card," but I'm grading my report card. A brilliant day by us.
I agree with that, and we'll see if we can do it again next week because I don't know what the hell we're going to talk about,
Yeah,
but
that'll
we'll
be a
figure it
little
out.
bit harder. BlueshirtBandwidth.com, $85 a year gets you all of your ad-free access to the New York Rangers. Please join us, subscribe. We have more subscribers than we've ever had. So thank you guys for that. Like us, give us 5 stars, leave a comment, Spotify, iTunes, however you find us. We've seen a big uptick in the shows. Thank you all for your support there. Thank you all for everything that you have done for us. $40 a year at Blue Shirt Banter gets you access to the Discord, which I'm trying to be a little bit more active in. It was hard this week because I was out of the country. But Chip is in there. Roberto's kind of running the show. So join us. You can join the commenting thread. You can ask questions that you hear on this very show. Other than that, I don't know. Give me your money. I just filed my taxes, and the loss from this company is kind of staggering. So I'd like to start making money one day. That would be cool. So I want to be an oil oligarch. I've made this very clear. Like, I want to own a yacht and then forget where I came from. I'd like to do all these things. You guys can help me do this by giving me money.
Do you
So
believe that people giving you money for subscriptions for the website is going to be used to buy oil that makes you an oil oligarch?
yes,
Or
I will make investments. Some poor soul is going to sell me oil cryptocurrency for a pizza that I'm going to deliver to him that will then balloon up into a $1 billion enterprise, in which case I'm good. Then I don't have to do this shit anymore. It doesn't matter. So
I'm waiting for one of these episodes to start, and instead of your door and your wall back there, it's just like barrels of oil that are stacked up behind
that would
you.
be a good bit, actually. How much could a barrel of oil cost for me to buy one? Just throw it back there. We'll figure it out. We'll do it. And you guys can donate to the cause, and it'll make everybody happy, mainly me. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for joining. We will see you next week. youtube.com/BlueShirtBanter, Facebook.com/BlueShirtBanter. See you around.
Graceful.
Bye.